Hey everyone. Trying to do these a lot earlier, trying to get myself going, keep myself together. Um, Update, the housing situation is insane. Um, I found out that once you have what we call a city FEPS voucher, you are stuck wherever you first move unless there's a special reason. So if you move into a slum, you're stuck there. The place being a slum is not enough to make you to get you out. But I have my back is shot, so I'm gonna see if I can get into a building with an elevator before I fall down these raggedy stairs. But this building will probably just fall apart soon, collapse. There's a bulge in the front, so it'll be soon. Um, you hear it and you feel it in the building. The whole building is just um, covered over raggediness. I got this book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Um, of course, it was in the library in the basement where all the good books are. So you had to go to the desk. Well, I had to go to the desk to get it. And I'm going to go to chapter 27, another presidential death, because what we're dealing with now with all the protests and all the upheaval and all the uprising is the reason why I don't go to protests. People who are protesting misunderstand the mindset of the ruling class. They don't value human life. They just don't. Even when you look at what they do with their own lives, and they love themselves and value themselves, but they take a lot of drugs, live with a lot of excess, drink a lot of alcohol too, put themselves in a lot of danger. It's high end, but they don't value human life itself. They value power and expressing that power, but not much for human life. And I figure I was reading through, and this chapter will show that. So it's called Panama, Another Presidential Death. And I'll talk more about when I'm finished something about all the protests that's happening, which I'm glad people are fed up and I'm glad people are taking to the streets. Palestine, genocide, all of that. I'm glad that we're fighting that. I'm glad that we're doing uncommitted against Joe Biden because he doesn't know what century he's living in. He thinks he's in the 1980s, 90s. He thinks he's in the 1980s, 90s. He's getting away with it because not a lot has really changed since then as far as the Middle East. So you could say things. I remember I was a teenager, very into politics when I was 14, 13, 14. During Reagan years, on up through George Herbert, Walker Bush, and Clinton. You could say things then, and it still applies now, right? I'm waiting for him to call black people predators. It's coming. It's coming. That's why they limit his speech and talk about what he says behind closed doors. He said it behind closed doors, I'm sure. But let's get into the reading. I was stunned by Roldo's death, but perhaps I should not have been. I was anything but naive. I knew about Arbenz, Mossadegh, Allende, and about many other people whose names never made the newspapers or history books, but whose lives were destroyed and sometimes cut short because they stood up to the corporatocracy. Nevertheless, I was shocked. It was just so very blatant. Blatant for then, but now everything's blatant. That's why. Oh, let me turn up my volumes. All right. That's why there are no conspiracies anymore. Right? There are no conspiracies because Everything's blatant. Nobody goes behind a smoke-filled room anymore to do anything. I had concluded, after our phenomenal success, in Saudi Arabia, that such wantonly overt actions were things of the past. I thought the jackals had been relegated to zoos. Now I saw that I was wrong. I had no doubt that Roldos's death had not been an accident. It had been all the markings of a CIA orchestrated assassination. I understood that it had been executed so blatantly in order to send a message. The new Reagan administration, complete with its fast draw Hollywood cowboy image, was the ideal vehicle for delivering such a message. The jackals were back. And they wanted Omar Torrijos and everyone else who might consider joining an anti-corporatocracy crusade to know it. But Torrijos was not buckling. Like Roldos, he refused to be intimidated. He too expelled the Summer Institute of Linguistics, and he adamantly refused to give in to the Reagan administration's demands to renegotiate the Canal Treaty. 2 months after Roldo's death, Omar Torrijos' nightmare came true. He died in a plane crash. It was July 31st, 1981. I was 10 years old at this point. So I wasn't quite into politics yet, but by the time 14, so I'm going to say about 1985, I was deeply in it. Latin America and the world reeled. Torrijos was known across the globe. He was respected as the man who had forced the United States to relinquish the Panama Canal to its rightful owners, and who continued to stand up to Ronald Reagan. He was a champion of human rights, the head of state who had opened his arms to refugees across the political spectrum, including the Shah of Iran, a charismatic voice for social justice, who many believed would be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now he was dead. CIA assassination once again headlined articles and editorials. Graham Greene began his book, Getting to Know the General, the one that grew out of the trip when I met him at Hotel Panama, with the following paragraph. In August 1981, my bag was packed for my 5th visit to Panama. When the news came to me over the telephone of the death of General Omar Torrijos Herrera, my friend and host, the small plane in which he was flying to a house which he owned at Coclosito in the mountains of Panama had crashed, and there were no survivors. A few days later, the voice of his security guard, Sergeant Shushu, alias Jose de Jesus Martinez, ex-professor of Marxist philosophy at Panama University, professor of mathematics and a poet, told me there was a bomb in that plane. I know there was a bomb in the plane, but I can't tell you why over the phone. People everywhere mourned the death of this man, who had earned a reputation as defender of the poor and defenseless, and they clamored for Washington to open investigations into CIA activities. However, this was not about to happen. There were men who hated Torrijos, and the list included people with immense power. Before his death, he was openly loathed by President Reagan, Vice President Bush, Secretary of Defense Weinberger, and the Joint Chief of Staff, as well as by the CEOs of many powerful corporations. The military chiefs were especially incensed by provisions in the Torrijos-Carter Treaty that forced them to close the School of the Americas and the U.S. Southern Command's Tropical Warfare Center. The chiefs thus had a serious problem. Either they had to figure out some way to get around the new treaty, or They needed to find another country that would be willing to harbor these facilities. An unlikely prospect in closing decades of the 20th century. Of course, there was also another option: dispose of Torrijos and renegotiate the treaty with his successor. So that's how they view human life. You don't want to go along with their plan, you're dead. The people around you, if they're with you, when they have to kill you, you're dead. Now they don't, it's hard to say they don't bomb you like this, because they'll actually start a war to get you killed. So you look at what they're doing in Haiti, you look at what they're doing in Ukraine, they're taking out massive amounts of people. Doing what in Palestine, they don't care. They don't care. And none of these corporate people care. Russian corporate people don't care. Like American corporate people don't care. Like Chinese corporate people don't care. Like Arab corporate people don't care. Persian corporate people don't care. Okay? These people do not care. None of them value human life. None of them. So, as the masses, we have to either decide to value human life. Meaning, you can't continue to turn your head while people suffer. Can't do it. If you're going to really take these people on, you can't do it. You can't come out and protest stepping over homeless people, then stepping over homeless people back on your way to your nice apartment, your nice house in the suburbs or wherever. You can't. That's not going to work, because what you're doing is, that's just like debating. It's useless. Who cares about debate? If you're all on the same stage, what difference does it make? And what all these protesters are going to have to come to the conclusion that I came to years ago, because I always said, well, how do you fight the powers that's destroying us? And I had to do that as a black boy, 14, 13, 14. Once I moved into the projects, it was so stark, it hit me in the face. I had to deal with all of that. CIA putting drugs and guns in the community embracing it, the violence that was pushed, the thick oppression that was pushed in Brownsville, Brooklyn. I had to deal with all of it. How to navigate it, how to survive, how to function, how not to go too deep to where you're not selling poison to your people, you're not shooting anyone. You have to navigate these things at a very early age, and you have to decide, are you going to value human life or not? And believe it or not, as a black man, 2 degrees, no criminal record, no deaths on me, I actually am poorer than the people who did the opposite. So, as a black person, when you face these things, when you face these issues, right, and I'm just telling you from my personal experience, you're going to end up poorer. You're going to end up with nothing when you do the right thing. You just are. That's why I know the protesters are full of shit. Because if these protesters really believed in human life and really wanted people to be alive and weren't just performing in the street so later on they could say, look, I protested this, then I would not be nothing. And I look across the internet at people doing work that I'm doing, and I'm like, they don't have the viewers. They don't have the support. They have more than I do, but they don't have as much as some get a good amount. And I'm sorry, one of my watchers don't like me talking about race, but you look across the thing, the black ones don't get the support. Okay? You look at the Patreon. It's not the same. Okay? And there's some blacks who whites really support and pick up, which is good, because we need a multi-ethnic thing. We need to do away. That's another thing. You need to just do away with race. But nobody ever does that. Because to do away with race means somebody has to give up something, and they're not going to be willing to give it up. Now, these protesters are going to be faced with the question, what happens when the ruling class says, we don't care about your protest? Protest all you want. We're not changing nothing. You want to unionize? Fine. We're not changing nothing. We're not negotiating with you for new contracts for nothing. We'll close the store. Like the guy who owns Starbucks. Every time the Starbucks unionizes, they close it. And I got another thing for you. All you Amazon union guy. Bezos doesn't make his money from the Amazon. He makes his money from government contracts for his servers. And now I notice they have a streaming service that's just for Amazon called Freevee. He can shut all those warehouses down tomorrow. Keep his platform on as a third party, so it'll be like eBay, be like Etsy, like it started out. What he could, and turn Goodreads actually into something like a Substack. If he actually did that, close all those warehouses tomorrow, he would make just as much money. He probably would even make more than what he's making. So fine, you're unionizing, fine, you're doing that, but they don't care about you. They don't care about human life. They don't care about fairness. They don't care about justice. The only way to beat the ruling class is to be those things in this world. Create your own schools in your neighborhoods, and they could be multi-ethnic. Create your own schools in your neighborhoods. There's no reason why. I live in a neighborhood with a lot of Asian, a lot of Spanish speaking. I see the parents coming from school, getting their children from school, and they all separate after they come out of that school. Right? So, I mean, their children go to the school together, but they all separate when they come out. The children separate when they come out. I'm sure they're separate inside of there. But if we're serious, we start study groups or schools, everybody's in the study group, we're learning. Close the schools now. Or take over the school buildings, but I mean, it'd be easier now with all the technology, just do that. You want to do retail? Do retail with each other. Because at this point, you can get wholesale stuff shipped to your house. Okay? You want to do business that way? Independent businesses, independent booth. You healthcare, take control of the healthcare. Using whatever means you have. There are all kinds of ways to heal different things. Eat properly and exercise. Now, of course, if you have a terminal illness, you're still going to need a hospital or a doctor. That's fine. You can do that. But for all the rest, community can start to take care of it and do it. And you probably will cut down on all the other terminal things if you did that. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take communities actually doing the things that they're protesting against, but doing it properly. That's why I started the Connerson Center. I'm not... Why? If I had the technology to start a school, I start a school. If I'm a writer and a creative and I write fiction, I like movies and films, I'm not going to try to join anything. I write scripts. I write scripts for people to buy and use. Good scripts, good things I want to see on television and in film. I mostly write series. And there has been some good series in the last few years, but I write those things. Good ones. If I don't like the music that's there, I don't protest the music industry. I write song lyrics. You can buy them. You can use them. That's what it's going to take. Us doing the things and supporting that instead of the ruling class and what they're dropping down, and us just, eating it up. When y'all ready to do that, you'll see me. The protest is fine. I like to watch it. I like to look at it. I like people um saying what they believe, and I like people yelling and screaming. I like the righteous anger. I like it. It's all good. But what are you gonna do when these people say that this thing could go two ways? It could turn violent, or what'll happen? What usually happens is most of the people will just go home, keep all their pictures and their videos. 30 years from now, say, "Hey, I was protesting the Palestinian genocide. See, I was there. I was at that march. That's what I was at the march. I was there. I was protesting during the civil rights. I was there. Oh, I was in the Black Power movement. Yeah." And we never asked, well, what the hell happened? What happened? People walked away. So the one good thing about this protest now, though, you're not going to be able to walk away because we're at the end of it all. We're at the end. We can't keep doing race and racism. We can't keep doing sexism. We can't keep doing brutalizing people just because you feel like it and you have the power to do it. The actual natural world is fighting back. So we can't keep doing that. It's not sustainable. And human beings will have to face it. Now, I faced all of this decades ago. So I've always been working toward making a better society, putting the infrastructure in, and the technology is amazing, as you see. So we'll see if we go that route. That's the route. You walk away and try to let the same thing go until we fade out of existence, or you become violent, right? That's what's going to happen to most of these protesters. You're going to become violent and start really hurting and harming people, and usually probably going to harm the people closest to you, because nobody still seems to have the courage to go out and harm members of the ruling class. So you already know I've said what my solution is. Just instead of protesting the things you don't like, do those things the right way. It's the only way I can see out. I could be wrong. I'm not above that, and some of you probably gonna tell me I'm wrong. But I've looked at it every way I can look at it. I'm 53 years old. I've lived through a lot of things. I've seen a lot of angles. Talked to a lot of people. I'm telling you, from tenured professors to convicts and ex-cons, formerly incarcerated, I should say. Brothers that have been freed from the cages, from their kidnapping. I've spoken to all kinds of people, and I've listened to all kinds of people, and I'm telling you, that is the only way out. When the Black Panthers, when the children were hungry, they fed them. It's really that simple. And everybody in the community contributes to feeding them. They had a school for them. They had clinics for people. They never really got to get big, but they did what they could. They had a sickle cell program, or I should say, in their clinics. So, but everybody was welcome in the clinics. Every ethnic group was welcome in the Black Panther clinics. So, to me, that's the way I see. Tell me what you think. Let's see if we can push some more ideas out here. Share what you think is going to happen. If you live long enough, you see things come around for second time. So I'm on my second. I've seen genocides. I've seen that the Palestinian genocide is terrible. The genocide in the United States, the slow genocide is terrible. I mean, it's all, but it all comes from these folks, and they don't care about human life. And thank John Perkins for showing us that they don't care from the inside. And he also shows you that if you think you're going to get on the inside and change things, you're not. You're not. God bless you. Go with God and try it. Convince yourself, delude yourself, but you're not going to do anything. And more often than not, when people do that, they're looking for comfort. They're not looking to change nothing. They're looking to be comfortable in the paradigm as it is. As death promoting and savage as it is, these people are looking for comfort in it. That's what they're doing. You can promote by clicking the links. Until next time, I wish you the most safety. It's rough out here. Take care, and try to be safe. It is going to be one of the hottest summers in this country's history. The migrant situation is boiling over. Poverty is expanding. Evictions are expanding. The homeless community is expanding. Anger and bitterness is expanding over the land. You know it, you feel it, or you have relatives who feel it that you avoid. But we're not going to be able to avoid it this summer. It's going to blow up. So try to stay safe. Try to keep your people safe. Let's try to do the best we can. There's no guarantees, and if I'm still around for the next reading, I'll see you then. Again, until then, take care. Be safe.